What's up, guys? Metapunk here. Today, I want to talk about the global liquidity crisis and how I see central bank digital currencies being implemented as a result. Alright, so let's get into it. So, first off, I want to start off with what a liquidity crisis is. So, a liquidity crisis is a financial situation characterized by a lack of cash or easily convertible to cash assets on hand across many businesses or financial institutions simultaneously. In a liquidity crisis, liquidity problems at individual institutions lead to an acute increase in demand and decrease in supply of liquidity. And the resulting lack of available liquidity can lead to a widespread defaults and even bankruptcies. So right now there's a lot of catalysts for a liquidity crisis in multiple sectors, whether it's finance, traditional business, or just the consumers. Especially now as the economy becomes worse, a lot of people want to have cash in hand to be safe. But the problem is a lot of these institutions don't have the money to keep up with this new demand. So it's a mixture of having a lack of cash and overall a lot of people are just relying on credit to get by nowadays. If you go to this chart, it shows that in Q3 of 2022, we're at an all-time high for credit card usage and credit card balances. So more and more people, whether it's consumers or institutions, are relying on credit. And then also there's a lack of cash, so it's a bad combo. If you go over to the United States debt clock, we have over $31 trillion in debt, and it's continuing to grow every second. And the problem is with our economy and our system, we live in a debt based economy. So the moment we stop issuing debt, then that's the moment that the economy becomes worse. So in the past 100 years, there were a lot of catalysts that led to all this money printing and debt issuing. So back in World War One, that was when we had our first significant increase. And then if we go to World War Two, there was another significant jump. And then since then, there wasn't too many crises or events that really led us to printing money. But starting in the 2008 financial crisis, that was when we started to see a really big jump. And then the 2020 crisis happened, which led to another significant jump. And then since 2020, we're projected to go another 100% by 2040. So there just has to be a lot of debt issuing and a lot of money printing to really keep the system afloat. And I just don't see it as a sustainable system. So the number one indicator of showing a liquidity crisis or just an overall economic recession, you look at the United States Treasury yields. So you have the 10-year yield in the blue, that's on top. And then you have the pink line in the bottom, that's the 2-year yield. So historically, you want to have the 10-year yield, that's the longer debt rate, higher above the 2-year yield because it shows that more people want to hold on to the debt for longer. But the moment you see an inversion where the 2-year yield is getting higher than the 10-year yield, it shows that there's instability because people want to hold on to the debt for a less period of time. And as you can see, the last time this happened, it was right before the 2008 financial crisis. And then we're kind of going into the same scenario now in 2022. And the fact that the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates and making it more expensive to borrow money and issue out more debt, a lot of countries are going to have the shorter terms because it's cheaper to have. And it seemed as a safer alternative because if you hold the debt for a longer amount of time, you don't know what's going to happen to your bond. So anytime the United States faces a liquidity crisis, it's going to affect all the other countries in the world because the United States is the main country that has the global reserve currency currently. So if the United States is not doing well, then any other country is not doing well. And the fact that the US dollar is the global reserve currency, a lot of countries had to keep up with that buying power. So in order to keep any form of stability, they had to sell their sovereign currency to buy the US dollar to keep afloat. So overall, the United States dollar is going to continue to grow in this climate while the other currencies decline. So now I have an article from JP Morgan and it talks about liquidity management in a multi-currency corridor network. And then by the meaning of that, the multi-currency corridor network, that's referring to the central bank digital currency. So they state that cross-border payments are notoriously inefficient. It could take anywhere up to 10 days and cost up to 10% of the value of the transfer. Also, cross-border payments rely on an international network of correspondent banks, and correspondent banks are like the pre-funded accounts that these banks have, which act as gateways into the payment system of that country. Also, these banks can have a restricted opening hours and operate in different time zones, which is going to delay the process and settlements of the payments. In addition, every bank in the chain charges processing fees, which increase costs, while there is often little transparency into the foreign exchange rates charged for each transaction. Now, due to the ability to cut out intermediaries involved in financial transactions, blockchain technology has the potential to transform the cross-border payment system. In particular, an integrated network of central bank digital currencies can facilitate cross-border payments on a 24/7 real-time basis. So as economies are getting worse and it's hard to send value across the world, I can really see these central bank digital currencies as a solution to this problem. And towards the end of the video, I'm going to get into central bank digital currencies more in depth. Also, I quickly want to add this in. So I think in the future, we're also going to have bond tokenization. So bond tokenization is the fact of representing the ownership of a bond by a token on the blockchain, and to automate the execution of the bond's terms via a programmable smart contract. So a system like this will be similar to how the central bank digital currencies work, just because it's on the blockchain. So having a tokenized bond, your bonds can be autonomously transferred 24/7 with virtually instant settlements. And also your investors can therefore easily sell their bonds over the counter or on decentralized exchanges. And you can also easily transfer or repurchase them in case of a favorable interest rate. So I just think having that 24/7 access and then the instant liquidity, I think it's really going to enhance global trade. And I know I always state this, but I think it's really important to understand the potential of this service. So you also have Ripple and the use of XRP with on-demand liquidity, which enables instant payment settlements and eliminates the need for pre-funded destination accounts, offering best-in-class payouts into markets globally. So if we're facing a liquidity crisis and Ripple has a service for on-demand liquidity that's going to be needed in the future, especially during a downturn, and then the utilization of XRP, which is a neutral bridge asset that anyone can use globally, and it has instant settlement times and the fees are feeless. I really see this being a big player in this liquidity crisis. And also Ripple and XRP are agnostic to the central bank digital currencies, so I could see it as an on-ramp and off-ramp for fiat exchange. Okay, so I stated some of the solutions of the liquidity crisis, but now I want to get into more of the catalysts of how I see it happening. So here we have an article from Reuters, and they state that pension funds and other non-bank financial firms have more than $80 trillion of hidden off-balance sheet dollar debt in foreign exchange swaps, the Bank of International Settlements state. So having a catalyst like this is going to cause a lot of damage. If a lot of these banks and institutions have a lot of hidden debt and they can't issue out money when it's really needed in the future, I can see this as a big problem if people really want to take their money out of the banks and they just don't have the money because they're behind on the debt. So here's another catalyst. You have a country like Nigeria that wants to limit cash withdrawals to $225 a week. And the fact that they want to do that, I really see this as a liquidity issue. Because if there wasn't any liquidity issues, why would they need to limit the amount of money that can be taken out? And this goes into a tweet from Jim Rickards. He states that this is all part of the elite's plan to eliminate cash and bring on the central bank digital currencies. Then your savings will be led to the digital slaughterhouse where freezes, seizures, tax withholdings, and thought control. So enjoy. And him saying that kind of goes into the problems with central bank digital currencies. So towards the end, I'm really going to explain the benefits and then also the cons of having these central bank digital currencies, because I really think it's important to understand the implementation of this new digital currency system. So there's other countries worldwide that are facing bank freezes for different reasons. So you have Yemen, and then you have a country like Iran that's facing bank freezes. So as the world is evolving to a new digital currency system, and also less banks have the liquidity to issue out cash, it's going to really cause a lot of bank runs. So globally, I think in a lot of countries, when people want to take money out of the bank, it's going to be frozen or stuck in the bank. And the only other solution they would have to have the instant money would be the implementation of the central bank digital currencies. So having this liquidity crisis is really going to shake things up. So I think it's really important to have assets in hand in your own custody, such as cash on hand, gold and silver on hand, and also cryptocurrency in a cold wallet that's in your jurisdiction. Because in any situation, you'll have your money in hand. It's not in the hands of the banks, and it's also not in the hand of a cryptocurrency exchange that can both freeze access to your funds. So as we're facing this liquidity crisis and then we're going to a more digital payment system, you have banks like HSBC that are closing 1 in 4 of their bank branches. So it's going to be around 114 banks that are shutting down. And the main catalyst for this, and they say that people are changing the way they bank, and foot traffic in many of these banks are at an all-time low with no signs of it returning. Banking remotely is becoming the norm for the vast majority of us. So yeah, I think in 2023 there are going to be a lot of bank closures as we become a more digital system, because if we have 24/7 payment systems and it's instant settlement times across the world, there's not really going to be a need to have in-person banks, especially when the central bank digital currencies get implemented. It's going to be instant programmable money. So overall, I can see this as a big catalyst for more bank closures. The problem with this though, I think there's going to be a lot of short-term pain for this transition period because people aren't going to be ready for this transition. So I think it's important to be ready now to have your assets in your own custody, so you're not going to have any issues when a lot of these things take place. So on top of all these bank closures, you have a lot of layoffs in different sectors like the tech sector. You have different layoffs in the banking sector, such as Morgan Stanley and other banks. And also you have a lot of bankruptcies in these cryptocurrency exchanges, which is more liquidity that's being drained. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the central bank digital currencies, or the CBDCs. So this goes into how they work. So each central bank digital currency is a digital representation of a country's existing fiat money, and it works the same way. Since many countries are working on their own CBDC, there will likely be differences in how they work, but they follow the same basic model. The country's CBDC, which has the backing of the federal government, can be used as legal tender for transactions such as paying employees or buying goods and services. And then they also state that this may sound familiar to what we already have, but with CBDCs, any type of transaction wouldn't need to pass through multiple banks and take several business days. It could all happen near instantaneously on one digital ledger. And also, consumers wouldn't need a commercial bank account to use the CBDC. For those who are unbanked, CBDCs will provide a way to transfer money digitally. So I can see in a lot of developing countries where people don't have bank accounts, I can see CBDCs being mainly implemented over there. And I think those are the main countries that they were mainly created for. And countries like the United States that all have bank access are least likely to create a CBDC. So the fact that the United States and the United Kingdom are looking to launch a CBDC, it really shows that there's a change in the money system, because we're less incentivized to use CBDCs. So a lot of changes are happening. And I still want to make a video on the United States shift on the global digital economy. I just want to wait till there's more regulatory clarity and a real vision, because in the United States, there's not like a clear path. So in the future, I'm going to make it, but it's a matter of waiting for the right time. Okay, so down here, this explains the different types of central bank digital currencies. So you have the retail CBDCs that are used in the general public. So the consumers would create their own CBDC in a digital wallet that are used for the payments. And this is mainly going to help out people that don't have bank accounts. And then also you have the wholesale CBDC platform, which are used by the financial institutions. So this is where the banks issue out the money domestically and also have other cross-border payment systems within the wholesale CBDC platform. And this shows all the pros and cons of CBDCs. So the pros of having CBDCs, it's going to be more efficient and have more secure payments. It's going to allow consumers to use a central bank directly. It's going to eliminate the risk of a commercial bank collapse, and it's easy to track. And then some cons: central banks have complete control. There's less privacy for users. It's difficult to attain widespread adoption. And it's also possible competition between central and commercial banks within each other. So in my personal opinion, I think from a technology standpoint, I really like the idea of CBDCs. It's going to bring a lot of efficiency and then give access to people that don't have bank accounts to have their own money system. But also you have the cons where the central banks could have complete control depending on what country you're in. So I think globally, you're going to see a mix of countries that actually use it for good, and then you're also going to have countries that really take advantage and misuse it for the wrong reasons. And I guess another benefit of CBDCs is going to give countries power to really use their own sovereign currency. And I think we're going to see a lot of growth in GDP, because instead of countries mainly relying on the United States dollar, they can really use their own currency and then issue it out. And the fact that it's instant programmable money, and then you can have systems like Ripple and XRP where you can instantly exchange that value. So for instance, you can have a central bank doing a transaction to someone in the United States. So they could send their Philippine peso, and then it's going to be instantly exchangeable to the United States dollar to the other bank on the other end in the United States. So definitely a lot of growth when it comes to money exchange, but also you have the control problem when it comes to the people that are going to be consuming the CBDC. So I compiled a list of different cryptocurrencies that are going to be compatible to the CBDC system. So you have different solutions like Quant that can connect these central bank digital currencies to other platforms to bring different solutions. And then you have XRP, which is a neutral bridge asset that can instantly send money settlements between the different cross-border payment systems and also domestically. And then you have Algorand that can bring infrastructure to these central bank digital currencies. You have IOTA that can bring infrastructure and also smart contracts. And similar to Algorand can also implement smart contracts within these systems. You have Stellar, which is a more domestic payment system similar to XRP. You have Adara Hashgraph that can implement different smart contracts or other decentralized services within their network. You have Cypherum that brings more infrastructure, liquidity, and also smart contracts. And then you have Zenfin, which is a hybrid blockchain that can connect with different public and private networks that can provide different solutions on these CBDC platforms. Oh, and I also forgot USDC. And this was actually rumored to be the United States central bank digital currency. I'm not sure if that's going to be true, but I just added in there just in case. But yeah, I think it's important to have these systems that are enterprise grade, that are compatible with the system, because there's going to be solutions and liquidity that run through these networks to help provide different solutions overall. And the main thing, the technology themselves are decentralized, so they're neutral to all these systems. So I think from a tech standpoint, these are good systems, but it's the matter of them being utilized for good. That's the main problem I see with this. So I find it interesting that all these events are taking place, and then a lot of these CBDCs are going live in 2023. And then meanwhile, you have the new ISO 2022 standard that's going to make the payment systems more efficient and interconnected, because now we're in one financial language instead of having different systems within one network. And the cryptocurrencies that I showed you beforehand are all compliant with this new system. So it's going to bring a lot more interoperability and just overall efficiency when sending payments. I want to know what you guys think. Are you for CBDCs? Are you against it? And also, are there other cryptocurrency networks that are compatible with these CBDCs that I just don't know about? I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say. All right, so that's the end of the video. Thank you so much if you made it this far. I really appreciate it. So overall, I really think there's going to be a lot of changes happening within the next few months and by next year. There's going to be a lot of bank closures. There's going to be a lack of liquidity in these banks and other financial institutions. We're going to see more implementations of CBDCs. And overall, people are going to get used to using more digital payment systems. So I think now, while we have time, it's important to be prepared to have a lot of assets in your own custody and just being knowledgeable of these systems. So once it takes place, you would know how to maneuver. Also, one thing I forgot to add on the con list of CBDCs, with some central bank digital currencies, because the money is programmable, there's a chance that there's an expiration date on how long you can spend the money. So you could be issued out money and then you have to spend that amount within a week. So it's harder to save money. And also, because there's going to be central bank digital currencies, I think we're going to see a larger spike in inflation. So this is where I think a gold-backed system would come back into place. Because if we have a lot of instant programmable money that can just be issued out, just like money printing that we have today, these systems have to be pegged by some sort of stable currency asset. So that's where I think gold, silver, and other precious metals are going to come in. So overall, I'm just curious to hear what you guys have to say about CBDCs. Are you for them or are you against them? Do you see different pros and cons? So yeah, it's your boy Metapunk. Thank you for watching, and I'm signing out.